Welcome back to the Advent of Code Day 4 Series Search. We have the lore on the screen for your reading pleasure. We are on a quest to save Christmas with Code. The summary of the problem is that we are given a grid of letters, and our task is to find all occurrences of this string, XMAS, in any of the 8 directions, as you would with like a word search. What they're showing here is the same input with all of the irrelevant letters turned into little dots, so we can see XMAS, XMAS, XMAS going down left and then up right. And if we see this here, we're going to find it's in the same spot there. So we have to write an algorithm to figure that out, count how many occurrences there are in the entire string, and we should get a total of 18. My solution here is going to be really straightforward. We are just going to turn this big string into a 2D array of strings, and then we are going to loop through every cell in that graph until we find an X, and then we are going to loop through all 8 directions, searching for the next letter, and write another loop inside of that to search for the next letter and the next letter. And if we ever find the S at the end, we're going to increment some sort of a sum. And we're going to use some fancy math and some tricks here. We're going to store all of the directions in an array where up is -1 for the Y direction and down is positive. And what we can do is loop through the letters we're looking for, multiply them by these values, and get some sort of an offset based on a current grid cell. We'll split the data into a 2D array of strings. We'll search for Xmas. We'll start with 0 found. We'll loop through every row, loop through every column. If we don't find an X, go to the next cell. If we do find an X, then we need to search in every direction. And then for every direction, we need to look for every character. The character we're looking for is the target word with the character at I, starting at 1. And then the index that we're going to look at is using this fancy math, where we take the direction row multiplied by I and the direction column multiplied by I, and then we compare the graph at the current row plus the row offset and then the column plus the column offset, and we don't check an index of a value that doesn't exist. That's what that does. And so if we don't find the target we're looking for, go to the next direction. If we don't break out of this loop and we get to the end, we're going to increment the occurrences by 1, and this should work. And it does. We get 18. And now we have our real puzzle input. We'll point our file path to the real input. We'll run it again. We get 2,547. Let's test that out. Boom. For part 2, our elf buddy is a little annoyed. We were looking for Xmas, and we were supposed to be looking for an X of mus. We have MAS, MAS, and they both share the same A, and so this is an X of mus. And so counting all of the occurrences of that, we should find it 9 times. For my solution, I'm going to do something that just feels kind of random, but I thought about it and it was really good. I'll search every cell for an A, and then from that location, I'm going to take every character in all 4 of the corners around it and concatenate them into a string. If we do that, we're going to end up with solutions that look kind of like this. Since we can only have the words MAS in a cross, there's only 4 configurations where that can be valid. If we have MAM, then we're going to get something like this. We're going to have MAM and MAS. But if we have SMMS or this, or this, or this, then that means that we've found the words that we're looking for in the right direction, and we should get the answer. So in order to make that happen, I'll use the same logic as before, except we're only using 4 of the directions. We'll look through every cell. If we don't find an A, go to the next cell. And we're going to shove every character in all of the corners into this string. We'll go through every one of the directions. If we find anything that isn't an M or an S, we can just move on to the next cell. Otherwise, we have an M or an S, we'll concatenate that into our string, and then we print that string at the end, and we get results like this. And the last thing to do is just declare those valid orientations of the M's and S's. They look like this. Then I can take the strings that I'm concatenating called corners, loop through all of the valid configurations, and if any of them match, then we found an occurrence, and we continue to the next cell. For our test input, we're looking for an answer of 9. That's what we get. Now we'll point to the real input. We get an answer of 1,939. Let's test that and see what we get. Our calendar is starting to take shape. Not really sure what it is yet. The code here isn't anything special, I wouldn't say. It's just another graphing algorithm, and I've written so many of those in my life that they're just so easy. And then just to note, the time here is 4.7 milliseconds. Hope you've been enjoying Advent of Code. If you are, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow for day 5.